Yes, lads, and welcome back to the Jabbo 37 YouTube channel, where today, guys, I'm going to be welcoming you to the Everton talk, joined by today with Cameron from Themightyblues.
Hello, how are we?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate, not too bad. Bit of a busy day, but yeah, all good, can't complain. Christmas soon, isn't it? The Blues have won a game of footy for like the first time in 37 years, so gotta be happy, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, the win against Arsenal was, do you know what, mate? I thought it was phenomenal. Like, we actually put a grafting performance in to be able to get the win, like, so it's just one of them. But today, guys, we're going to be talking about Everton as a whole. So, like, our season so far, the ins and outs of transfers, and just stuff like that, to be honest, in terms of, like, how can we improve as a football club, and, like, how can we go forward as a football club, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with Rafa Benitez coming in as the manager. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
It was always going to be a controversial appointment, wasn't it? I think when the board, specifically Farhad Moshiri, appointed Rafa Benitez, he obviously knew of the controversy surrounding it. Obviously, we had the banners and we had, the stuff before us. Before his appointments, and whilst I don't agree with the banners and certainly the wording of some of them, it was a clear indication that there was a large, or certainly a significant percentage of the Everton fan base that weren't happy with the appointments. And even those that were happy, I think sort of knew, like, again, that it would only be a matter of time before things went wrong. I said myself when Rafa Benitez was first employed that it wouldn't have been my first choice, and not particularly because he managed Liverpool, but more so because I just don't think his record of recent years has been very good. I think tactically he sort of can fall under that, that sort of criteria of not really changing his tactics to suit football. Football's changed an awful lot in the 10 or 15 years since Rafa Benitez has been successful. It's changed a massive amount, and so managers fall into this pit of just continuing to do what they usually do, and it doesn't work anymore. But again, I said a couple of months ago when he was employed, what happens if we're on a bad run of form? We're again a couple of games without a result, and we play Liverpool in the derby and we're 2-0 down and they start singing his name. What happens then with fans, and where are fans' heads at then? And that's exactly what happened. I was told at the time, well, don't be so negative. What happens if we're 2-0 up in the derby and we're singing his name? And I said, yeah, that could happen, of course, that could happen. But what happens if we're, again, a couple of injuries, as is what have happened, and the form goes down, and then we're losing that Merseyside derby? And obviously after the defeat last Wednesday, there was a lot of Blues that wanted the manager to be sacked. Personally, for me, I don't feel like Rafa Benitez will be at Everton for the foreseeable future. He might last for the next couple of weeks, he might last for the next couple of months, but in reality, my opinion is that it's only a matter of time before he leaves. And again, that's not just because of results and performances. I understand that. We've had injuries, and I understand that he's had very, very little to spend in the summer, which obviously is, again, he couldn't have afforded to have such little to spend in the summer and to have injuries. Given the fact that there was controversy about the appointments anyway, he really needed a full strength squad for at least the opening couple of months of the season. And we get to 3 games in, and our goal scorer, our only real outlet for goals, picks up an injury that's kept him out for 3 months. But for me, my biggest issue with the manager recently has been some of his tactical decisions. I know a lot of people that want Rafa Benitez to leave Everton Football Club, but not necessarily because he's ex-Liverpool or because they beat us and they were singing his name. It's more to do with the concerns about where we are in the table and some of the tactical decisions he's making. Things like being 1-0 down to Brentford with half an hour to go and only using 1 substitution. Things like playing a 2 in midfield against Liverpool when it was evidently clear, every Evertonian could see we needed a 3 in there. Now, obviously, the Arsenal game was amazing, and I'm sure we'll go on to it, and it was a really, really good win. But that game changed when Andre Gomez come on and made it a 3 in midfield. So it'll be interesting to see on Sunday against Palace whether Benitez does go with a 3 in midfield. And again, for me, that would show that he's acknowledged that, a 3 works better than a 2. Or if he goes with a 2 again and we end up, picking up a negative result. Because I think with the appointment, he was never going to be allowed leeway. It was never going to be, give him time, he's this, that and the other. Don't get me wrong. There's other issues at the football club, massive issues at the football club that go beyond Rafa Benitez, but at the moment, barring Monday, because it was absolutely amazing, and the Damari Gray's goal in the last second was fantastic, and I suppose one big plus point of Rafa Benitez's time at Everton is he brought Damari Gray to the football club for, only a 1.6, 1.7 million pound, whatever it was, and he's been astonishing. But I felt had we have not won on Monday, we might have been sitting here, talking about who's going to be the next Everton manager sort of situation.
Yeah, I get you. So in terms of me and my thoughts on Benitez, I feel like he was probably the best of the bunch in terms of who we were offered. You look at Nuno and he got sacked from Spurs early.
Yeah.
Graham Potter, to be fair to him, right, and I know this might be a shot at Brighton fans and stuff like that, but I don't really want to come across that way. Graham Potter seems to not be able to handle, he's kind of like that type of person where it's like, well, I'm kind of giving you the best season he's ever had. And because he got didn't he get booed at one point?
Yeah,
the 8th in the league.
Yeah, I think last week they were booing him, or they were booing the team, or they were booing as football fans do, and you can see him turning around on the television camera, shaking his head, and as if to say, "What are they booing about?" I can't even begin to imagine what Graham Potter's reaction would be if Everton had gone 2 months without a win and had lost to Brentford, and the away end was as it was a couple of weeks ago. I think he'd just run away, to be honest with you, and never come back.
Exactly, mate. So I feel like for me, Rafa Benitez was probably the best option, the viable option anyway, at the time. I mean, there was some shouts at Conte, but to be honest, I could never ever see Conte coming to us in the first place. I feel like the core of the team that we've got isn't good enough, and we'll move into that a bit later on, but for me, it's not going to draw a manager to want to come and manage the football club, with the state that we're in at the moment. So we'll talk about some of the transfers that, have happened, and its ins and outs we're going to be talking about here. So we'll start off with James Rodriguez going to Al Rayyan in Qatar. So on the transfermarket.co.uk website, they're saying it was a fee of 7.2 million. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I'm going off what they're saying in terms of this. Now, James Rodriguez, for me, he's probably, when he's played, he's produced for the majority of the games he's played in. So, do you think he's a big miss in terms of us, letting him go, basically?
Yeah, I listen, I think it'd be silly to sit here given the form that we're on at the moment, and okay, we can take Monday's result against Arsenal with isolation because we don't know how we're going to perform after that win. It could be a massive confidence booster, it might be a relief for the players to get that win, and we might go on a really good run of form now, but prior to Monday, I think it would be silly to sit here and say a player of James Rodriguez's quality not being in that squad is a good thing. When you look at some of the options that we've had on the bench in recent weeks, when you look at some of the decisions the manager's made in terms of substitutions, when you look at the fact that prior to Monday, where we ended up scoring 4 goals, which is mad, we've been really, really struggling to score in recent weeks. We've been really struggling to create chances. It's been, per game, there might be one half chance that's created by Damari Gray or Ranzos Townsend or stuff. Obviously, we've had Solomon Rondon up there who's not done much in recent weeks and months as well. So I think it would be quite silly to say, he's not a massive miss, because any footballer with that quality is going to be a miss. We saw how he single-handedly demolished Liverpool in February with that one ball to Richarlison. I don't think there's anybody else within this squad that has got the tactical nuance and quality to be able to play that ball, as well as a lot of other things he done last season. Again, I'm sort of, I understand, I suppose, why the club moved him on. I also understand the fume from fans is to say, hang on, we pushed James Rodriguez out the door. Obviously, we've got a little situation at the moment with Luca Dean, although Luca Dean's come out and said to not believe everything in the newspaper. Again, at the time, when James Rodriguez was being rumoured to be leaving the football club, was at a time when Everton were, I think, 3 wins out of 3 in the Premier League. We were in a really good situation. We'd beaten Brighton away and looked really good against Brighton. Obviously, we'd come back against Southampton, come back against Burnley. The manager was starting to get a lot more Evertonians on side. We were starting to see a different side to this Everton team, coming back from being a goal down, etc., etc. And a lot of the, I suppose, the story with James Rodriguez was that he just doesn't want to work hard enough. He doesn't want to fight for his place. He doesn't want to train hard enough. He doesn't want to be, he wants to be guaranteed that he'll be in there every week. And also, fitness and injury is a big issue. There's a serious conversation to be had about Yerry Mina, and I love Yerry Mina. I think Yerry Mina is unbelievable. I think he's our best centre half on his day, and I think character-wise, personality, I think he's great. But there's a serious conversation to be had as to whether or not his injury record and the fact that he's constantly picking up injuries warrants the wage that he's being paid and a new contract that will have to come. So I think that was a big point with James Rodriguez as well, not just maybe the attitude or maybe the willingness or the unwillingness to work as hard as everybody else, but it was the fact that, again, he might play one game and then be out for 9-10 weeks, and can we afford to have a player on upwards of £190,000 a week given our financial situation, constantly out injured, and then when he's not out injured, demanding that he plays even if he doesn't want to train or even if he doesn't want to work hard enough. So I understood it from a financial business standpoint, but then when you look at the last couple of months and the results and the performances, you think, you can't sit here and say he wouldn't have had an impact, because ultimately, we're playing we've got about 7 goalkeepers on the bench every week, so he would have had an impact instantly. But the club might have been looking at it at the time thinking, well, we've got no money to spend. This fella doesn't want to work as hard as everybody else. Isn't going to be injury free every week. Maybe it would be a different conversation if James Rodriguez never had an injury or was fit constantly. Maybe the club would say, well, okay, his attitude mightn't be the best and he mightn't want to work as hard as everyone else, but he's going to be fit every week and his quality is unbelievable. That wasn't the situation. That wasn't the case. So I understood it at the time, but I also understand fans saying, well, you can't really make those decisions given the weakness of the squad. But yeah, what did you think about it, mate? Because I think, again, it's easy, isn't it, now to say, oh, why did we sell him? It was a disgrace. But I remember a lot of Blues at the time. There was a lot of Blues, don't get me wrong, that didn't want him sold, but there was a lot of Blues at the time that was sort of saying, you don't want to work hard, you don't want to, you're injured every 10 minutes. See you later.
See, the thing with me is, I'm all for it, but in regards to if we can get a replacement.
Yeah.
So say if we got rid of James Rodriguez but then brought in, so say if obviously Rafa Benitez wanted to play the 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
You need a centre attacking midfielder that can provide the killer ball for the the forwards.
Absolutely.
The wide men. So for me, I personally, would have held on to him, providing that we could get someone in his position. But have we done that at the moment? I don't believe we have. No.
Can I ask you the question about James as well? Do you think he wanted to stay? Honestly.
Part of me wants to say yeah, but then the majority of me wants to say no.
Yeah.
I feel like when Rafa's come to the club and seen him, he's instantly made his decision.
Yeah.
James Rodriguez, and this is no disrespect to us, by the way, so if any Blue does disagree with me, I'll always be able to chat to you via the comments, but don't give me so much hate for saying this. I feel like James Rodriguez came to us not for Everton, but for Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's probably the same with Alan as well, but the difference is Alan stayed. He's fought for his place. He's starting games for us, and he's happy here.
I agree. I agree. And to be fair, James Rodriguez come out and admitted that it's interesting you mentioned Alan there, because there was a situation that I thought was really, really telling, and it was when Carlo Ancelotti left. I think it was before Rafa Benitez was employed, to be fair, but when Carlo Ancelotti left, not so long after, Alan done an interview, and there was a little bit in the news. It wasn't an awful lot, but there was a little bit in the press about him leaving or him not wanting to be here, etc., because Ancelotti's left. And he'd done an interview where he'd done something with Everton, where he come out and basically said, no, I'm here, I'm really enjoying life here, I love the Premier League, I love the club. Yes, Carlo's gone and that's sad because we've got a good relationship, but I'm going to stay here at Everton. Whereas James was on Twitch playing Call of Duty every night saying, I don't know who Everton are playing, I'm not ready, I'm not fit, or I am fit, and this, that and the other. And it was always sort of, again, it was this mixed match of communication. And I remember sitting down and doing a stream at the time and saying, when James Rodriguez is on Twitch, he's not talking to Evertonians, he's talking to James Rodriguez fans. When a footballer gets to a certain level, they go beyond having, their fans go beyond just being the fans of the football club they're playing for, if that makes sense. They have their own fan base. Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. There'll be Cristiano Ronaldo fans now with Manchester United shirts. If he gets up and leaves in the summer and goes to Sporting again, they'll buy a Sporting shirt because they're Cristiano Ronaldo fans. And I've got no problem with that. Some football fans, and it's the same in other sports, some fans of sports follow a player rather than a team. So James Rodriguez was constantly communicating with his fans rather than the fans of the football club that were paying him and the fans that, embraced him and wanted him. So I do think it was a bit of both. I think it was very easy PR-wise for James to come out and say, oh, I like it here, I want to be this, that and the other, and for it to seem like he was pushed out the football club. But I think in reality, he probably was there saying, listen, I want to move because I'm not going to be able to work with you. He come out himself. He said when Carlo was here, I think it might have been in his first interview with Everton, he was asked, did you come here for Everton or Carlo? And he said, well, both. I've come here because Carlo's here and I like him, and the football club have given me this opportunity and I appreciate it. He then said when Carlo had left on Twitch, I only come because of Carlo. So I think there was a lot more that went on behind the scenes than what we're making out. And I think if every Evertonian knew exactly what happened, that full situation, I don't think we'd give a lot of blame to Rafa Benitez. But in hindsight, given our recent results and performances, you sort of have to look and think we could have done with, his creativity, we could have done with his goal involvement at the minute.
Yeah, true. So another player that we'll talk about now is Moise Keane. He's on the loan. We got a loan fee for him for 6.3 million. Yeah. But, I'm guessing that's a loan to buy. Is it a loan to buy?
There's an obligation to buy on the end of it, I believe, but it's if he hits a certain amount. From what I know, it's an obligation to buy. There's just a thing in the contract which says he's got to appear a certain amount of times or turn up to training a certain amount of times. It's very like things that he will do, but it's an obligation to buy.
What's your thoughts on his attitude, like, more than anything else? Like, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, that he went on loan last season due to attitude issues, I believe, with Carlo.
Well, he went on loan, didn't he, to PSG, and I remember Ancelotti at the time saying that, and even beforehand coming out and saying that they don't want to send Moise Keane on loan. They want to keep him. They want him to be part of the squad. And I even think Carlo come out at the time and said, listen, he wanted to go, so we've let him go because we're not going to keep him here. Against his will. But we didn't want to send him out. And then he obviously had the loan with PSG. And, when you're playing next to Mbappe and Neymar and Di Maria and I think Thiago Silva at the time. Oh, no, Thiago Silva was at Chelsea. Some of the best, Marquinhos, Kimpembe, some of the best defenders and attackers and midfielders in the world. And you're playing in Champions League quarterfinals against Barcelona. It was absolutely no surprise to me that Moise Keane was going to come off the end of that loan deal and say, I don't want to be here anymore, because he wasn't having a great time at Everton anyway. He was struggling to get in the team. I think him as a player was sort of struggling to settle into the Premier League as well. The physicality of the Premier League and how quick you've got to be. Obviously coming over from Italy, it's not the quickest league in the world. And as I said, when he come back off his loan deal, I think it was done and dusted at that point. He'd gone from playing next to some of the best players in the world to playing next to some of the worst players in the country, or certainly the level of quality dropped dramatically. He obviously put a post up, didn't he, after the PSG loan saying, hope to see you next season. And PSG was the team that I think he was absolutely wanting to go to. I don't think Juventus were really ever in his mind until it got to the point where he thought it's either to go back to Juventus or to stay here at Everton. And I actually think for both parties that deal was suitable. The Moise Keane move was always a risk. He could have come here and been absolutely unbelievable and been a game changer and, again, absolutely hit the ground running with goals and goals and goals. He didn't. He come here, he struggled to settle in. And to be fair, I think I do feel a little bit sorry for him. He come to Everton at a time where 7 months later, we had a national lockdown. He's a young lad, 18, 19 years old, in a brand new country, practically on his own, and he's had a 4 or 5 month period where he's been told he's not allowed to leave the house. So again, that can't be easy. That must be hard for any footballer, especially a young lad who's just starting a new career on a new stage in his career. But I just don't think it worked for Moise Keane. I think sometimes in football you have situations where things just don't work and you've got to say, right, we tried it could have worked, it didn't work, we'll move on now. And I've got no real malice towards Moise Keane or towards the club for letting him go, because at the end of the day we could recoup most of the money that we paid for him. I don't think all of, but certainly most of. Whereas if he'd have stayed again this year and Rafa Benitez would have deemed him not good enough or not working hard enough, then he would have another year down his contract and his fee would have dropped dramatically. So I don't have a big issue with that. What do you think about Moise Kean? Were you sad to see him go?
I am a bit like, I feel like he deserved more of a chance with us.
Fair enough.
Because the majority of the time, I feel like he was just a bench player for us. Maybe could have tried to up top in terms of having Richarlison out wide with Moise Kean and Calvert-Lewin up front to see how that would have fared out a bit. But obviously that wasn't the case, especially under Carlo Ancelotti as well. For me, in terms of the way he exited the club, in terms of that, there was nothing wrong with it, but I felt like it was Huddersfield he got sent off against, weren't it?
Yes, in the cup for push or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like that alone kind of put its stance on that I feel like if he wanted to be there, he probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
In terms of that, so I felt like that probably put a big exclamation point on the reason his exit type of thing to Juve.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't have any hate towards him. You know, he's 21 years of age. You know what I mean? So he's still got a lot of his career ahead of him. And for me, I heard when he was under Ancelotti, the reason why he got loaned out to PSG was due to attitude issues. Now, for me, if that's the case, I pray to God that Moise Kean doesn't end up being like the next Mario Balotelli in terms of attitude-wise, because I mean, look at Balotelli in his career. You know, it was promising when he was at like Inter Milan, Manchester City. Then that just fizzled out after that.
Yeah, no.
But the baffling thing for me was when he got loaned out was, if it was for attitude reasons, why is he getting the chance to play with, you know, the best players in the world? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's mad, isn't it? Because attitude can mean so many different things. Your attitude could be that you don't want to turn up to training and you can't be arsed. Your attitude might be that you're coming into the dressing room and you're causing issues week in, week out, that you're turning up late, you're this, that and the other. Or your attitude could just be that you're not very happy where you are. Everybody has a job in their life where they turn up and they'll do the job and they'll do to the best, but they're not very happy. And I feel like that was the case with Moise Kean. I don't think it was an attitude as the sense that he was a disruption or that he went against the rules or that he'd done things wrong. I think it was more a case of that he just wasn't really happy here. He just hadn't settled. Things weren't going well for him, and he probably wasn't coming in with a massive smile on his face every day. There was pictures and videos of him smiling, and I'm sure he was dead polite and pleasant, but I just don't feel like it was right for him or for us.
Do you think it was for the cameras though, the reason why he was like smiling and stuff?
Yeah, maybe, probably because he knew that if he wasn't caught smiling, then people would talk about it. But you could see in his body language, even the Huddersfield game, he just walked straight off. He just didn't want to be here, and I don't mind that. Listen, this lad is a young striker from Italy, come over, fresh start, new career, promised this, that and the other, and it didn't work out for him. Now the manager, you know, Carlo Ancelotti will probably say, well, it didn't work out because I didn't think he was good enough, or I didn't think he was as good as Dom, and that's fine. And Moise Kean might say, well, I don't think I was given enough opportunity to show, and that's fine as well. It just didn't work out for him. It didn't work out for him. He was much happier in Paris, I dare say, as we've said then, because he was playing next to some of the best players in the world in the Champions League, this, that and the other. And if me or you, mate, are, you know, Evertonians, we're professional footballers coming through Everton's academy, and we get loaned to, I don't know, what's the equivalent of Everton in Spain? Maybe Real Betis or somewhere like that.
They're excelling at the moment.
Valencia maybe, Seville, someone like that. And we get sold there when we're 8, 19, 20 years old, and we're there and we're not really enjoying it too much. And well, we can speak the language, but it's not really great. And then Manchester City come in for us and we get a chance to go, you know, to or maybe not Man City because that's the same country up. Let's say, I don't know, Juventus or Inter Milan come in for us and we're there and we're doing really, really well and we're scoring goals and we're playing in the Champions League and we're playing next to these amazing players, and we go back to Spain in the summer and say, do you know what? I really enjoyed it there. Can I get a move there? And they go, you can't get a move there, but you can go back to Everton and try and get yourself back in the Everton team. You're probably going to say, well, yeah, I'll go back there. I'm comfortable. I'm at home. I know the league. I know I can score goals in the league. I know I can do well in the league. It is mad because it was funny when he was on loan last season, because every time he played and every time he scored, you know, I was doing it on our Twitter, and a lot of other Everton Twitters were doing it, sort of tweeting, you know, another goal for Moise Kean. How good would he have been in this, you know, in this situation Everton were in at the time? But the reality is he was getting fed by Neymar, Mbappe. He was some of the best players in the world were crossing the ball into him or were giving it to him, and he looked dead happy. And listen, if you put Richarlison in Manchester City's team, he'd probably scored an awful lot more. If you put Dominic Calvert-Lewin in Liverpool's team, he'd scored an awful lot more, because the players around them are much better than the players we've got around us. And Moise Keane's obviously thought, well, if I can go back to a side that are in the Champions League and doing well, then I'll go back there. If he only had, let's say, Bournemouth and, I don't know, fucking Crystal Palace as his options, he might have gone, no, do you know what, I'll stay here and I'll work it out. But he got a better move. He got to move to a better club without really doing anything from Everton. He got a loan to PSG when really he hadn't really done an awful lot. It's not like he'd scored 15 goals for Everton.
He'd done nothing to suggest the warranty of the loan move to PSG.
Exactly, but he got it, and why would he not take it? And maybe he got it because somebody at PSG said, thought, this lad hasn't got an attitude, he's just not very comfortable there, bring him here and he'll do well. And he did. He went there and he scored 11 goals, something like that, in all competitions for them. So again, as I said, mate, I've got no issue with him. It didn't work, and sometimes it doesn't work, and he's left, and I wish him the best of luck. I hope to see him scoring in the Champions League final this year. I doubt he will, but I hope to see him. I hope to see him there.
So, in wrapping up Moise Keane, now I don't really want to go much into detail about this player in particular, and the next one coming up, but for me, it's like, we knew he was never going to do well with us, and in Josh King, by the way, I felt like when he was only a bench player with us, and he never done really anything when he came on the pitch, I felt like.
Yeah.
And it's just turned out now that he's done really well at Watford, and it's like he's settled there. He's probably very happy there as well. He's starting games for them, scoring goals, loving life there. So, I don't really have much to say about Josh King in terms of that, unless you have much to say about him. Like.
No, I think Josh King's situation just epitomises Everton, really, doesn't it? Comes to Everton for very little money. An option off the bench, a support for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He was supposed to come in and give Dom and Richie a bit of a rest. He was never really favoured by the manager. I probably do agree with what he said himself, in that he wasn't really given the opportunity to. But he did get time. He did get chances at Everton where he'd come on, and within 2 minutes he looked absolutely knackered. So I think it was a bit of 50-50 in that situation. But he epitomises Everton by the fact that he left in the summer for nothing. Again, we said, it didn't work, move on, and he comes back and scores an hat-trick against us in the opening 5-6 weeks of the next season. But again, it didn't work. It didn't work, and I think he'll probably look back at Everton and think it could have worked had I have been given a more of an opportunity. And Carlo Ancelotti will probably look back and think, which one was Josh King again? I don't remember him. No, he'll probably look back and think, if he'd have applied himself a little bit more in training, had he have worked a little bit harder, had he have shown me a little bit more in, when I brought him on, he'd have been given more of a chance. But I just think from the offset, it wasn't ever working, really, was it? Because it was also a time in the season when, we signed him. We signed Josh King, obviously, in January on deadline day, the last minute of deadline day. And I remember everybody being excited about it. And it was at a time when we'd had a really good start to the season. We had a sort of an okay October, we had an awful November, and then in December we beat Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal, all in the space of a week or so. And then we go into January, and all of a sudden we were second on Boxing Day, I think, beat Sheffield Wednesday United, and we brought in Josh King to give a little bit of, a rest to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. But then we started to get into a period of form when we weren't winning, we were losing every home game, we were struggling to pick up wins, we were struggling to pick up results, and I think the manager probably looked at it and thought, I need to play Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin because we're not in as good a form as we were maybe when we decided we needed another striker to provide cover. So again, I haven't really got much more to say about him, to be honest. Good luck to him, and it is typical Everton that he scored an hat-trick, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I wish Josh King obviously the best of luck at Watford as well. So we'll speak about some ins and get your thoughts on that. We'll get the first one out the way because I think everyone knows that I have the biggest agenda in the world against this person. I'm not afraid to voice my opinion when he's doing bad, but I can also voice my opinion when he's played well. And to be honest, I feel like in the Merseyside derby, Solomon Rondon. You know, he done his bit in the Merseyside derby. He done what was asked of him.
Yeah.
But to sum him up, useless.
No, listen, you're right about the derby, to be honest. I think it was his best game. I think it was his best game in an Everton shirt. And that is saying something, because he still didn't score or provide any form of attacking threat. He just put himself about a little bit more. And ironically, the game that he's put himself about a little bit, he's ended up picking up an injury. And obviously we didn't see him against Arsenal on Monday night. But again, I look at Solomon Rondon and I just think you are nowhere near the level you need to be to have a pivotal, you know, role in this squad. Coming off the bench with 10 minutes to go, if we're winning 2 or 3-0 and Dominic Calvert-Lewin's on the pitch and he scored an hat-trick and you need to bring him off for a rest, yeah, why not? We've won the game. Yeah. Solomon Rondon isn't going to do much, but the defenders might have a little bit of a look at him and think, we're shattered here, how are we going to cope with him? But he was never ever brought in to start every week, and he was never brought in to be a goal scorer who was going to, you know, be hitting 5, 10, 6, 11 goals a season, because he's not the Solomon Rondon that played for Newcastle under Rafa Benitez however many years ago. So I look at Rondon, and my biggest thing with Rondon is I don't really go on him personally for a couple of reasons. Firstly is because he doesn't pick himself. He's picked by the manager. And secondly, and because he didn't turn up at Finch Farm with a gun to somebody's head and demand somebody signed him. The manager's gone out, the manager's signed him, and the manager persists with him to play week in, week out. And has done since he's come. And I know people say, oh, it's because Dominic Calvert-Lewin's out. But yeah, he's had chances before the manager to play a forward line without Solomon Rondon, and he hasn't. He's persisted on putting him in there. There's obviously a friendship there, a relationship there between the two. But ultimately, I think Rafa Benitez needs to realise. And my big issue with the Rondon situation isn't even that he starts games, particularly, because I get that, you know, he's an experienced centre forward and this, that and the other, you know, all of that the manager keeps saying. It's the fact that when you get to 60, 70 minutes and he's done absolutely nothing and he's knackered, that he still keeps him on instead of taking him off and putting a young lad on, a Sims or a Dobbin, or, you know, even just switching it up and putting Richarlison up front like we seen on Monday. He persists with Rondon when he's clearly not doing anything, and that's the big problem I have. But again, that's a Benitez problem. This fella can only give what he can give. Some people would say he doesn't work hard enough, he's not giving everything. He might be there thinking, I do give everything, I'm just not that good. And if that's the case, then that falls on the manager for picking him every week, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Do you feel like, though, it slows down the development for like a Lewis Dobbin and an Ellis Sims?
I think Sims is more so than Dobbin. Dobbin's still, you know, 17, 18 years old, young lad, doing well in the under-23s, but we know the step up from under-23s to first team is dramatic. And Lewis Dobbin definitely needs a loan deal to a Championship club or a League One club to see how we can cope. So as much as I think we should have seen him over the recent weeks, because there's been times when players have given absolutely nothing and we've been getting beat, and you sort of think, well, at least this lad will come on and run around and give it 100%. But Ellis Sims a bit more so for me, because he's 19, 20 years old now. He's just been given a new contract by the club. He went out on loan last January to Blackpool. The club determined that he wasn't going to go out again in the summer. Yes, probably because of injuries and other things, but they decided to keep him at the club. He's been on the bench and in the matchday squad for the majority of the weeks that, you know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been out. Okay, recently he's been playing for the under-23s, but I don't see the point in Ellis Sims 1 week being on the bench for the first team and the next week playing for the under-23s and then being on the bench for the first team. That's not progression. That's just 1 step forward, 2 steps back. If he's fit enough and ready to be on the bench and be a member of the first team squad, he shouldn't be playing for the under-23s. And if the club have determined that he's good enough for the first team squad but he's not good enough to start or playing games, then he needs to go back out on loan. It's as simple as that. It's pointless having him playing for the under-23s and then putting him in the first team squad and then putting him back in the under-23s. If he's not good enough to come on and have an impact in the Premier League, which the manager clearly thinks he isn't, then he needs to go out on loan, or the club needed to not give him a new contract and say thanks for everything, but it's not going to work out. They've given him a new contract now. He either needs an opportunity or he needs to be moved on loan to get a little bit more experience, as he did with Blackpool, not just playing in the under-23s, because he's too good for the under-23s. He's too big, he's too developed, he doesn't need to be there. He'll score hat-tricks there every week because that's not his level. But as I said, I I can't sit here and say that I am pleased with the fact that he hasn't been given at least 10 or 15 minutes here and there, especially when Rondon has been as bad as he has.
Yeah, exactly. So, to be honest, I think that's Rondon summed up in a nutshell, to be fair. Like, I mean, I feel like as fans, we can't really go in on him too much, because it could come to the point where his confidence is knocked, especially if he's like, I'm not saying he is, by the way, but, you know, players with social media and stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know, if you're going to see something about, like, I don't know, for example, if you're Lewis Dobbin and he's played a bad game in the under-23s and you see something on Twitter about it, it's not going to make him feel
No.
very pleased at all.
No.
So we'll move on to, we'll do this as a dynamic duo, why not? We'll just talk about the next two in its own way. Andros Townsend and Damari Gray. I feel like, for me, Townsend, his work rate's unbelievable when he plays for us. There has been games where, you know, it is bound to happen. You're not going to play a 10 out of 10 every week, are you? So that's like where I'm getting with Townsend, but Damari Gray as well, you know, since he's coming to us, especially for the price tag that he's coming to us as well, being like 1.7, 1.8 million from the Bundesliga as well. You know, he had this spell at Leicester before going to Bayer Leverkusen, so it was one of them things, and then we give him a chance here at Everton. And so far, he's excelled in this chance that he's been given by Rafa Benitez.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both are really smart signings. Andros Townsend obviously started the season on fire, scored that worldie against Burnley, scored a really important penalty against Norwich, obviously scored at Old Trafford. I do think he's sort of slowed down recently. I think his form has slightly dipped, and I think, although I completely agree, I think his work rate is unbelievable. He's constantly working, he's constantly running around, he's constantly involved. I do think his end product has slowed up recently, and maybe that has shown why he's a fantastic squad player and he's a really good player to have at the club, but maybe that is where you sort of look and think, this is where we needed another right winger, this is where we needed somebody else. And I know obviously we were heavily linked with Luis Diaz in the summer, but this is where Andros Townsend being a good squad player would come into play, whereas playing every week and his end product dipping isn't really what we need at the moment. But and again, that is just me being picky. And maybe Andros Townsend could say, well, that's because I haven't got Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the box to find with crosses, and I'd probably say fair enough to that. But no, he's for free, coming for free. Obviously, as I said, his work rate is exceptional. He's already scored an absolute worldie this season against Burnley. He's had, you know, a lot of goal involvements for Everton. I think he's up there maybe second or third at the club. And yeah, he gets back, he helps out defensively, he works hard, and for what his wages will be practically nothing, I would assume, certainly very little, not practically nothing obviously, but very little in comparison to Bernard or James Rodriguez or, you know, Josh King, who was at the club. Again, I think it's a smart sign, and I do understand fans at the minute saying, well, yeah, you know, he started well, but, you know, recently he hasn't been good enough, and that's where we need another right winger, and I get that, that's absolutely fine. But he's done better than what I expected, to be fair. He only scored one goal last season for Crystal Palace, and he's already, you know, scored, 3-4 for Everton at the moment, so he's done a lot better than what I expected him to do. Yes, we probably do need another right winger, and he could probably do with being that optional squad player. He maybe shouldn't be a starter for Everton, but that's where we are at the moment, and I don't think he's you know, a big issue at the football club, certainly when you think about other things going on. And Damari Gray is just amazing, isn't he, mate? Damari Gray is just absolutely unbelievable. This is a lad who, as you quite rightly said, you know, went over to Germany, 25 years old, needed to mature. I remember him at Birmingham, is absolutely unbelievable coming through the ranks. I remember looking at him thinking, this lad could be one of the best players in Europe. He went to Leicester. I think he had a mix of Premier League being difficult, you know, to adjust to, but also obviously being young and making mistakes. And I think he come out in an interview recently and said when he was at Leicester, people would be telling him, you know, to do this, to do that, and he'd sort of be thinking, no, I'm just gonna go on and score, and that's not really the attitude, you know, you need to have. He grew up, he went to Germany, played, you know, a little bit over there, but in and out the Bayern Leverkusen squad, and Everton ultimately made a unbelievably good financial decision, which is something that I haven't said about Everton for a long time. Now, I don't know whether it was Brands or Benitez or somebody else within the club, but somebody looked at Themightyblues and thought, this lad's got talent. Now, all that he needs is a settled home, to get his head down, to work hard, and you could see a fantastic footballer. And for 1.67 million, it was a no-brainer for me. No-brainer. If he didn't work out, then we'd sell him for a profit anyway, because you always sell for a profit at that lower price. If he did work out, he could turn out to be unbelievable. And as Monday's goal against Arsenal shows, mate, he is absolutely unbelievable, isn't he? His work rate is immense.
Exactly,
His work rate's immense. He seems to be one of the only players at the club that isn't afraid to pick the ball up and run with it. He's skillful, he's quick, he can score goals, not only just worldies like that, but he can score one-on-ones. He's amazing for me. He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so going back to that Themightyblues goal anyway, you'll probably see my reaction in the matchday vlog when that's out. It should be out well before this video, but yeah, moving on. We'll move on into the fixtures now, so we'll skip out the cup games and go into the league games. So, you know, the first 4 games we had was Southampton, Leeds, Brighton and Burnley.
Yeah.
So out of that we picked up 10 out of 12 points.
Yeah.
Obviously drew against Leeds, which comes to the first part of trouble in the 5th game, coming to Aston Villa. So we got beat 3-0 by Aston Villa in the 5th game of the season. I feel like that was more of a Benitez tactical error in judgment.
Yeah.
In that game, if I remember rightly, didn't we have like no striker for half an hour or something like that?
Yeah, we were doing okay, weren't we? And we were battling and we were fighting with them, and it was sort of, again, it wasn't the greatest game of football, if I'm being honest. And all of a sudden they done to us what we did to Burnley the week before. Within the space of 10-15 minutes, they'd scored 3 goals and we were completely out the game. I think Dom was out at that point. We'd had a couple of injuries and we were sort of keeping ourselves in the game. And then, as I said, we completely capitulated for that 10 or 15 minute spell.
Didn't Leon Bailey come on and then go back off injured again?
Yeah, he come on, scored, and then went off injured, which again is just epitomises Everton.
So we'll speak about like the bad results rather than the good, because obviously every fan can take its like the positives and their own point of view away from the positive results.
Yeah.
But it's where we go wrong that I really want to focus on today, in terms of how we as a squad can improve, and obviously different fans' point of view. So, the 6th game of the season was Norwich and we beat them 2-0, so we won't speak about that one, and United being 1-1. You know, to be honest, United away as well at Old Trafford, it's a good result of 1-1.
Yeah, absolutely.
West Ham at home. West Ham high flying in the league at the moment, in the Premier League, that is, beating us 1-0. Now, I remember not being at that game. I was at home watching that game, and when watching the game, it was like that game was a game of whoever was scoring the first goal was winning the game.
Yeah, I agree. And West Ham weren't particularly great on that day either. They were just very, very organised. Yeah. It really, when I think back to it, it was a really bad game of football to watch. If you were a neutral watching it, you probably fell asleep halfway through it. And you're right, it was a game of whoever scores first is going to win this, and they did. And ultimately, I wasn't too disheartened about it. I was a little bit frustrated because I felt like they weren't as good as what we maybe thought they were, and that's why we respected them an awful lot more than we probably should have. But as you said, they were high flying, doing really well, and it's a defeat that ultimately you look back at the end of the season and you won't pay too much attention to.
Yeah, so we'll move on past that game now, because as I said, it was a game where whoever scored first was winning that game, and obviously West Ham beat us 1-0. So we'll move on to the next game, being the Watford game. Now, for that game, it was just a weirdness what happened there. We were 2-1 up and ended up losing 5-2.
Yeah. It was a shocker. It was the worst defensive performance in that last 10 minutes I've ever witnessed from an Everton team. They just completely capitulated. And no disrespect to Watford, but we capitulated against a side that will probably go down this season, or will certainly be, sort of fighting to stay up. Come the end of the season, we were awful. We were absolutely dreadful. The players just give up. There was no fight. There was no determination. There was no effort. It was sort of just like that defeatist mentality. There was no urgency. No, it was just like as soon as they scored the second, it was like, right, okay, this is game over now. And we could have gone and got a third. We could have kept it and got a point, which would have been an awful point. Don't get me wrong, but it'd have been better than losing 5-2. But we didn't. Our heads just dropped, and players made stupid mistakes. And they obviously went on and got the other 3, which was extremely disappointing.
Josh King came to haunt us, didn't he?
Yeah, he certainly did.
Our defending was terrible that game, but we'll move on into another disaster of a game even, in Wolverhampton Wanderers away from home. Now, they probably could have been 4-0 up in the first half.
Yeah, I was there at Molineux. It was bad. It was really, really bad. He had a
disallowed goal from Hwang Ki-chan, didn't he?
Yeah.
VAR disallowed that. So, is there really much to say about that game? Where do you reckon we went wrong in that game? Do you reckon it was Benitez and his tactics? Because even since the Norwich game where we won 2-0, played a 4-2-3-1 onwards all the way through to Wolves away. So obviously getting beat by West Ham using the same system as well as Watford and now Wolves. So do you think that's more of a Benitez error in terms of the formation used, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. Not so much the formation at that point, but more so the personnel. I think obviously John-Philippe Gbamin started that game, and listen, we all want John-Philippe Gbamin to succeed as much as each other. But the reality is to start a lad who's not played or started a Premier League game for 2-3 years, and to throw him in a game that against the Wolves side that are quick, that can attack teams, that can create, in a game that we really needed to win given the manner of the last result, I think was baffling for me. Brought Fabian Delph on at half time and it changed the game. We were much more comfortable. We were much better on the ball. We were much quicker. We were getting forward. We were actually becoming a threat in that second half. I know we scored. Alex Iwobi scored at that point, but the decision to start Jean-Philippe Gbamin in that game on his own next to Alan, given Alan isn't the fastest player in the world, was absolutely baffling in my opinion. And we were really, really bad in that first half. We carried on what was the last 10 minutes against Watford. We were awful.
So I agree. If you're in that point, we were terrible against Wolves, and that's obviously at that point makes it 3 defeats in a row.
Absolutely.
For us, to be honest, and our good start of the season at that point has been thrown out the window. You probably could have looked at the loss in the first 6 games. Against Aston Villa is probably an anomaly, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Just wasted the odd one out. So you probably could have looked at it as well as we could probably could have, bypassed that loss and got a few more wins, but it just hasn't been the case. So we'll move on into the Spurs game drawing 0-0, and we won't talk about the Man City game as much because I think to sum it up,
it is what it is.
If you'll agree with me or not, it is what it is. We defended well for the majority of the first half, and until they played, it was a Cancelo who played that ball over to Sterling, who slotted it in to put them 1-0 up, and at that point they absolutely decimated us and beat us 3-0. So we'll talk about Brentford. I feel like Brentford needs to be highly regarded because there was no fight, there was no hunger, there was nothing in terms of how we played. 1-0 down and we don't even bring on. We have 2 substitutions available at this point, and we don't even bring anyone on. So. I agree. For me, the Brentford game was all on Rafa Benitez, ultimately. I do feel like at that point as well, it probably justifies to the fans to have the right to say Rafa out. I mean, you could probably go as far as the Wolves game, being 3 defeats back to back to back.
Yeah.
But then he steps it up against Spurs, we draw 0-0 against them, but then going on to the Brentford game, it's more so, how can I put it? It's 50% of the players and it's 50% Rafa Benitez, that game, to sum it up.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think ultimately the players, although again, and he kept saying, we've got injuries and this, that and the other, and I get that, and I get we had Dominic Calvert-Lewin's still out. I understand all of that, but the reality of the situation is we should have been more than good enough. I think we had Richarlison out in that game as well because he picked up a 5th yellow card. We should have been more than good enough to go out there and get a result. Ultimately, the players should have been able to pick themselves up, even being low on confidence, and realise, okay, this is a Brentford team that aren't amazing. And they weren't amazing. They got a penalty in the in the first half, which was a stupid challenge by Andros Townsend. We should have had a penalty not so long after, but again, we didn't bother claiming for it. And it was just another defeatist sort of, we've gone 1-0 down, so we'll bury our head in the sands. We don't want any involvement in what's going on. And that for me is my biggest problem. I can't stand that. I can't stand players, something going wrong and players just going, oh, well, I can't be bothered now because we're losing, or I can't be bothered now because we're not winning. It just, I just can't bear it. But you're right, Rafa Benitez has to take blame as well, because we were 1-0 down with 20-30 minutes to go in what was a must-win, an absolute must-win game for the manager and for the club. And he decided to only use one substitution, which for me is just stupid, absolutely stupid. I don't understand why he didn't decide to bring on all 3 substitutions. I just don't get it. That completely falls on the manager, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does. As well as, how can I put it? I do agree with you on that as well. I feel like at this time of the season as well, scrap the Arsenal game, but we'll stick at the Brentford game in the way how we're feeling. At that point, I feel like the fans didn't, not the fans, the players didn't want to play for the shirt.
Yeah.
You'd see players, back in the day, well before I was even around. If you were to lose a game, you'd be absolutely pissed off, is the word to to be using. I remember when I'd play like a Sunday league football match or something when I was younger. If I was to lose, mate, I'd be angry. I wouldn't be,
absolutely
doing what they do now. And I don't understand how half of these players, I don't know if it's the money that they get or whether it's anything else like that, they're following on the social media networks or anything like that. But how can you sit there and go, we've lost the game today, I'm going to go out in like Manchester or Sheffield or somewhere like that for a meal? Like, if that was me, mate, I'd be hiding in my house and like having dinner at home.
Yeah.
So that sums it up for me anyway in terms of that. I feel like the players need to be more responsible.
Yeah,
in
I
terms
agree.
of how they can conduct themselves.
I agree.
But
there needs to be accountability for performances and results as well.
Yeah, 100%. And at this point as well, it's not just Benitez and it's not just the players, it's the board as well.
Absolutely.
If anyone's not watched the stadium tour at Goodison Park, make sure you go and check it out. There's one thing in there that'll baffle your mind as to why I point out that if we can't do the little things right, we're never going to be able to do the big things, and that's even run a football club and stuff like that. So we'll move on to the Merseyside derby now. Was it a shock at this point? Because no one was ever up for it in terms of the fan base of Everton Football Club. There might have been 1 or 2 people who probably believed we could win because form goes out the window in the derby and stuff like that. But I don't know. I wasn't optimistic for it. I was saying in Everton Twitter spaces that we were going to beat 3-1 and stuff like that, and turns out we get beat 4-1. So you probably done. Probably maybe expected a bit too much from Everton to be able to keep the 4.
Too high expectations.
But no, I feel like the midfield got overrun in that game.
Yeah, again, another. Don't get me wrong. Listen, Liverpool, as much as it kills me and every other Evertonian to say it, Liverpool had an exceptional team with a plethora of world class players and a world class squad ultimately. But you're right, Rafa Benitez didn't help himself to play a 2-man midfield against arguably the best 3-man midfield in Europe, certainly in this country, is baffling in my opinion. It's absolutely baffling. It's nothing short of tactically inept, and that's where Rafa Benitez will fall short. That's where fans will start to get, annoyed and frustrated, and that's where fans will start to turn on him. Is that he's starting to make these decisions now, or certainly has been over the last couple of weeks, that you look at and you think, I can't understand why or how you've come to that decision. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying that had we have had a 3-man midfield, we'd have won the derby, but I think we'd have done significantly better.
Probably test them a lot more.
Yeah.
Because the chance that we did have with Damari Gray, put in the back of the net, didn't he?
Absolutely.
So it comes to that point again, like, we needed to set ourselves up better for it. I feel like the difference between the derby that we won at Anfield compared to this one was, you know, obviously Ancelotti took the occasion out of the derby.
Yeah.
At Anfield, I felt like, whereas in this derby it was all eyes on Benitez. You know, the agent Rafa shots coming from them. For us, he wasn't doing very well either. You know, tactically making decisions wrong, and he continued to live up to making tactically wrong decisions.
Yeah,
that's the best way to put it.
That's about right, mate. That's about right.
So we'll move on to the Arsenal game, and we'll have our bit of happiness for a minute before we move on to future fixtures. So, did you take part in 27 minutes for 27 years?
I didn't personally. The reason being is because obviously the channel and videos, and I don't have any other creator that is with me to do videos. But I said on the channel, fair play to the people that did. Fair play to the people that didn't. I completely agree with protests against the board. The board needs to change. The board needs to be moved on, certainly a lot of them. And, you know, I think one thing is for sure is that, you know, a lot of people that stayed built the atmosphere up. Then the song started, the chant started, and then obviously, you know, the performance was put in by the players because of that atmosphere. Yeah. So I think it worked. Generally, it did work. I don't think anyone can disagree. But we all want what's best for the football club, don't we? And ultimately, that's the most important thing.
So for me, I took part in it. So I went down into the concourse and bought a bevy. Probably I've seen on my Twitter, it was a bottle of Carlin.
Fair play.
Until I found out that Charleston scored, and then I was fuming, and then it was offside, and then I was like, fair enough. And then Martin Odegaard put it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the match day vlog, it's probably scuppered a bit of it, but, you know, I probably have explained in there already the main reason why for the majority of the first half footage being missing was because I took participants in that. So for me, I kind of stuck my beliefs over the video.
Yeah.
In terms of that.
Oh, I agree, and listen, again, I've got no issue with it. And I think fair play to everybody that did take part, and maybe on another day, as I said, I would have. But again, at that time, I just felt like, no, do you know what? I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna support, and again, the crowd got up and we were on the attack, and that was just a decision I made. But I had, again, fair play to everybody that did. I had absolutely no issue with it. I think the main thing is that we all stay united as a fan base, and we don't we don't fall to bits and start, you know, with the argument and the disagreeing because of it.
Yeah. See, that's the perfect thing about this scenario right now is that, you know, the people watching this video, they've got two guys in front of them, one who took part in it and the other one who hasn't, you know what I mean? And they've both given the reasons to why they may or may have not participated in that. So, you know, it probably shows a lot of people as well. You know, for those who are like going at other fellow Evertonians, the main reason as to why we need to stay united as a fan base.
Yeah, absolutely.
And respect each other's decisions rather than, you know.
Absolutely.
It's one of them, isn't it? Like, as long as we win games, we're all happy, and as you know, we win together as a fan base and we lose together as a fan base, and it's about how we go about things.
That's it. Spot on, mate. Couldn't agree more.
What do you think about the future fixtures? So we'll just talk about the Christmas ones for now, because there's no point expanding into January as such, because we don't know what's going to happen within the January transfer window. But, you know, you've got Palace on Sunday, you've got Chelsea on the Thursday, and then, you've got Leicester, Burnley and Newcastle. How many points are you expecting out of the...
I think we've
4 to 5 games.
Got to be Palace on Sunday to give us that momentum. You know, you've got to. It'll be a difficult game. Palace are in relatively decent form. They're relatively good organised side under Patrick Vieira, but we've got to go out and beat them ultimately. Chelsea will be an extremely difficult game. They've proven over the last couple of weeks that teams can get at them. Watford nearly picked up a point there. Obviously, West Ham managed to beat them last time out. So it's by no means an impossible fixture, but it'll be extremely difficult. I think given Leicester's situation at the moment, I think again a result at Leicester would be needed. I'd probably take a point, but 3 points would be what I'd be aiming for, especially given the fact we need to really start winning games. And then Burnley Boxing Day has got to be 3 points in my opinion, as has Newcastle. A couple of days later, again you look at Newcastle, Burnley, and Palace, and you think we've simply got to win all of those games. And if we can take even maybe 2 points, 4 points maybe out of Chelsea and Leicester, I'd be happy with that. But even if we lost to Chelsea and beat Leicester, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
So out of the next 15 points, how many points would you say you'd take? About 10 to 11 points maybe?
Yeah, around that, yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy with that. So we've got past that, so we'll do a little bit where we go into transfer targets. Now, January transfer window will be coming up very shortly, so it's one of them things. Who would you sign in January and why?
See, I haven't got specific really players to per se, but I think positional wise we need a right back. I think it's difficult right back at the moment because in the summer we had the whole Denzel Dumfries. Obviously that's not going to happen. Max Adams I haven't really been massively impressed with this summer, to be honest with you. So I can't say I'd want us to go out and spend the money on him. But we need a right back. Whether or not we sign one in January, I suppose, is another question. We haven't got Marcel Branson at the club now, and he was a big believer in not bringing in a lot of players in January. Maybe that'll change now with Rafael Benitez. But we 100% need a right back. I think we need another centre midfielder of the same sort of style and stature as Abdoulaye Doucouré. That is a necessity, in my opinion, an absolute necessity. And I would like a right winger as well. I think somebody else that can come in as a starter week in, week out and allow Andros Townsend to be sort of like not a bench player, but sort of more of a squad player. And I know some people will say Luis Diaz, but on Luis Diaz's form at the moment, it looks like he'll be signing for somebody a lot more in a much better situation than Everton. So it's difficult to pick out names because, again, certain players that I'd have said in the summer haven't really made an impression on me so far this season. But I think right back, centre midfielder in that Doucouré role, another right winger is essential, in my opinion. Essential. Striker, maybe you could get away with if we've got another right winger who can, score and contribute with just having Dom there. But given Dom's injuries, I wouldn't mind another striker as backup as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I've gone for a few here in terms of transfer targets. Now, I've probably got one dream signing in there, and the rest I'd say are around ish to where we are.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna really say, I'm gonna take this person. I'm not gonna say Messi, Neymar, Mbappe. It's just unreal. It just never happened for us. So I'll start off with Lewis Dunk from Brighton. Now, I know that sounds a bit questionable, and you're probably thinking I'm off my head or something. But for me, he's a leader, and a leader is something that we're majorly missing out on at the moment. So someone of his stature, whether it's not Lewis Dunk or it's someone else, I feel like it could be a leader's definitely something that we need. Fullback, going for the right back position, I've gone for Tarek Lamptey. Probably would never come to us, but he's young, he's a right back, he's got the pace. He starts games for Brighton, does really well, puts 100% effort in. So I'd go for him. My dream signing is a winger. I'd go for Rafinha.
Brilliant player.
He'll probably never come to us.
Brilliant player.
Because I feel like the teams that would come in for him would be European clubs. But I'd love to see Rafinha at Everton. Another one, he's a midfielder of Carlos Soler from Valencia. Spanish, probably Rafa Benitez is more type of a signing, obviously because he's Spanish.
Yeah.
He's doing really well for Valencia at the moment as well. And he's young as well, do you know what I mean? So it adds that bit of, you know, it brings the age level, like the average age of the squad down a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one I've got is a centre half in Pau Torres from Villarreal. I know Villarreal are playing in is it the Champions League at the moment?
Yes.
But they're not doing very well in La Liga. So maybe try and, you know, I think he's 24 years of age, so maybe try and get him to come to Everton. You know, bring that European experience in it, the improvement to the team massively. I think if you have Pau Torres alongside Yerry Mina, for example, if fit, you know, bring a lot of you know, experience there. Regarding the Luca Dean situation, if we was to get rid of Luca Dean, I've gone for Alejandro Grimaldo from Benfica.
Okay.
As a left back, I feel. Obviously Spanish again, so Benitez would probably know a lot about him. And yeah, I've got one more as well in a forward man of Armin Gariri, I think his name is, from Nice. I've not butchered, I probably butchered his name, but he's a French striker. He's very young and he's doing well in the league at the moment. So
playing under Christophe Galtier.
Yeah, so whether he could come and do the same for us is something that I don't know, but
really good shouts there, mate. Some really good shouts.
It's, you know, I wouldn't bring them all in personally in January. I think it'd be probably a bit of a project to bring them in. Yeah. That's obviously regarding whether we do keep Benitez and stuff like that, to be honest.
FFP and the money we're allowed to spend and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Exactly. So we'll talk about a couple more things now before we'll leave it there. So the first thing I want to talk about is Marcel Brands. Obviously he's left his position. And we'll talk about Marcel Brands as well as the board. And so, you know, Marcel Brands has left his role as director of football at Everton Football Club. Now, what's your thoughts on that? Like, because obviously there was that disagreement there that him and, was it Mashiri, didn't see the same vision at Everton?
Yeah. Listen, I've said for weeks now, and I know a lot of people have said for months and years that there needs to be serious changes made at board level. Marcel Brands was one of them in my opinion, but not the only one, and probably not the first. I think Marcel Brands has to take responsibility for the fact that Everton are another £200 million deep and still finishing bang mid-table. Now yes, he's made some good signings and he's brought in some good players, I get that, but the decision to not bring in a right back in the summer is baffling me. And I know people will say, oh well, we had this player and that player and Benitez didn't want this player and that player. We've needed a right back for 4 years. 4 years we've needed the right back. Yeah. Marcel Brands has been here for 3 years. From the moment he walked into that door at Everton on his very first day, we needed the right back, and we haven't had one. He brought Sidibe in and then didn't replace Sidibe when he realised he wasn't good enough. So for me, he is massively at fault for that. We're starting to hear stories coming out now about him not being given, full reign and not being allowed to do what he wanted to do, and Mashiri signing certain players like Alex Iwobi, without Marcel Brands' wishes, and that doesn't surprise me. I think Farhad Mashiri probably has gone behind Marcel Brands on a number of occasions and made decisions that maybe he wouldn't agree with, and the way I look at that is, what's the point in bringing in a director of football to direct the football if you're just going to take the job off them and you're going to do it yourself? It just makes no sense to me, and that's another big issue with the owner. Obviously the owner isn't going to leave, it's his football club, but he needs to start taking a back seat, in my opinion, realising that he hasn't really got a clue about football. Get rid of other people on the board that need to be moved on because they're not bringing anything, i.e. Bill Kenwright, and take a back seat and think, you know what, I'm going to employ people who understand football and I'm going to let them do their job. Because whilst he is carrying on getting involved and acting like it's his little, his PlayStation game where he can just go on and make whatever change he wants and then it won't have any impact, we're not going to be anything of a success whilst that is happening.
So yeah, I agree with that, but one name I want to throw in there that probably does need to leave as well. We all know that she's probably looking for future endeavours somewhere else, and she's been given the open opportunity to be able to do that with Denise Barrett-Baxendale as well. So it comes to the point where it's just, how can I put it, it's the whole board really needs to take a look at themselves and think, am I right to run this football club? And
yeah, absolutely.
For the majority of us, there's probably the odd one or two people out there that will say, yeah, you probably are, but for the rest of us, nah, no, they're not.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you look at it as that. But if anyone does have anything to comment, the comment section's always open down below.
Absolutely.
So the next thing, guys, that we'll talk about is the last thing that we're going to talk about, because I don't think we're going to have much to discuss until after Christmas, maybe towards the end of the season. What's your thoughts on Luca Dean being dropped?
It's a mad one, isn't it? It's a mad one. Firstly, I think it's important to understand that Lucas hasn't been particularly great this season. Obviously, he's struggled and he's had a single assist. He hasn't scored. Didn't score last season either. Yes, he made up for it with a lot of assists last season. And I think there's rumours and sort of reports coming out over the last couple of days or so suggesting that Luca Dean is maybe being sort of told to stay in a little bit more of a defensive role of recent and not really get into those areas to create. Also, you have to include the fact that we haven't had Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front. We've had Solomon Rondon, who we spoke about before as not being very good. So that's obviously hindered Luca Dean as well. And it's a mad one because The Athletic and a lot of reliable sources are coming out and saying that Luca Dean and Rafa Benitez had the fallout because of his role in the side and the way in which we're playing at the moment and our tactics and stuff like that. Luca Dean come out on Instagram today and said, don't believe everything you read in the paper. The most important thing is that the team win. I was disappointed not to be picked, but that's football. So it's interesting when The Athletic are coming out and saying that the fallout is that serious that it could end up with Dean leaving the club. And Luca Dean's then coming out and saying, don't believe everything you read in the newspaper. It sort of, again, it leaves us all sort of thinking, well, what's going on, really? That's where I am at the moment. I'm sort of here thinking, what's going on? Where are we? What are we up to? So again, it's difficult to comment. I think we'll know more in the next couple of weeks. We'll see if he's in on Sunday and if it was just a one game sort of thing. Ben Godfrey did play, relatively well against Arsenal on Monday as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he keeps his place, and if he does keep his place, it'll be interesting to see if Dean makes the bench because obviously he wasn't in the squad at all. But it's a really difficult situation to talk about, I think, because we don't know the ins and outs of it. If Luca Dean hadn't come out on Instagram today and said anything, we could all sit here and go, well, obviously there's been a big fallout and we don't know whether he'll stay or go. But coming out and saying, don't believe everything you read, sort of makes me think, well, what's right and what's not right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you still think at that point, though, do you reckon Luca Dean makes a difference to the squad and whether we finish in Europe or not? And where do you think we'll finish this season in a realistic position?
I think he does, because ultimately I think when Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes back, listen, Ben Godfrey was very, very good on Monday, got forward a couple of times, but ultimately he's not an attacker, so his end ball, his end product isn't great. We know that, that's no surprise. And when Luca Dean is in those areas and he's able to put crosses in and he's able to play the ball into the box, he obviously has got a lot of quality. He's shown it before. He hasn't shown it a lot this season, fair play, but he's shown it before, and we know that he possesses that. So I think he definitely has an impact. And as we said with James Rodriguez before, to keep a player of Luca Dean's quality out the side for an argument would be silly, in my opinion, certainly given the fact that we haven't got a lot of quality at all. In terms of where I think we'll finish, it's difficult, mate. If you'd have asked me before Monday, I'd have said below 14th. Now, given that we're one win away from sort of being in and around those positions, it's tough. I think if I was to say any position, I'd say probably 10th, bang mid-table again. I don't see us getting in Europe or doing anything, and I probably don't see us being relegated. Although I think if we don't carry on from Monday's win, we're in a relegation zone, so we've got to win again on Sunday.
Yeah, so we'll end it there, guys. So make sure you go check out Themightyblues in Cam as well. Does fantastic reviews, match reactions and stuff like that. So any videos you need regarding them, he's your man for it because he's got the knowledge there. He's got the brain power as well that I don't have. So we'll leave it at that. If you want to see more of this, whether we'll do it like within every couple of months or something like that, just make sure you let us know down in the comments down below. And yeah, until next time, guys, Cam, do you want to sign us off, mate?
Yeah, thank you for watching. Obviously, thank you very much for having me on. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to coming back on over the next few weeks and having another chat, definitely after Christmas when, we can determine whereabout we are in the league. But no, thank you very much for having me on. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to Jebo's channel, subscribe down below. Leave a comment as to whether or not you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and stuff. As I said, as Jebo said kindly, you can come and check us out at the Mighty Blues if you want as well. But big thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you guys soon, man.